Hello and welcome to Japan Lyric Room. In this program, we carefully savor the lyrics of Japanese songs, delivering in an easy-to-understand way the meanings behind the phrases and the unique cultural background of Japan.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. We have a really fantastic program for you today.
We really do. And just before we jump in, I need to mention that while the audio and illustrations for this video use AI, the project itself is run by Japanese people living in Japan. And the script's content has been thoroughly researched by human hands over time to create an original commentary.
Exactly. So today we're going to be exploring a track that honestly totally flips how we usually look at romance right on its head.
Oh, absolutely. Usually, when you think about a new romance, it's organic. You meet, you get butterflies, you confess your feelings.
Right, it's supposed to be this natural, lovely process.
Yeah, exactly. But what happens when you enter the world of, these high-achieving, overly analytical elites, suddenly that whole natural process is it's completely broken.
It really is. It turns the romantic landscape into an actual high-stakes battlefield.
A literal love brain war. We are savoring the lyrics of Daddy Do feat. Airi Suzuki for the legendary Masayuki Suzuki.
Yes.
Released in the spring of 2020. This track is just a massive 80s-style disco funk explosion. It has this driving bass line and a brass section that it grabs you by the collar the second you hit play.
It is relentlessly catchy, but to truly appreciate the genius woven into these lyrics, we really have to look at the context. This song was explicitly written as the opening theme for Season 2 of the incredibly popular TV anime, Kaguya-sama, Love is War.
Right, and that context is everything. The premise of the show takes place at Shuchen Academy. This is an elite school reserved for the absolute top-tier, future leader geniuses of society.
The best of the best.
Right. And our main characters are the leaders of the student council. First, we have Vice President Kaguya Shinomiya.
She is brilliant, phenomenally wealthy, and possesses just a staggering amount of pride.
Precisely. And opposite her is the student council president, Miyuki Shirogane.
So, if you are listening to this right now and you've ever been too stubborn for your own good, you are going to relate to this premise so much.
Oh, totally.
Because these two elite geniuses are completely, undeniably head over heels in love with each other. But, because they are so fiercely intelligent and so deeply insecure underneath it all, they basically view romance as a battlefield.
Right, they operate under this wild delusion that whoever confesses their feelings first is, the ultimate loser in the power dynamic of the relationship.
It's crazy. So they are engaged in this ridiculous, intense war of brains.
A war of brains, exactly. Every single day is spent desperately trying to trick, trap, or psychologically manipulate the other person into confessing first.
Yeah.
And the pedigree behind the song capturing this war is just astounding. The lyrics and composition were crafted by Yoshiki Mizuno of the band Ikimono Gakari, who you might know internationally for the third opening of the anime Naruto.
Oh, right. That's Naruto. A massive track record right there.
Absolutely. The track was arranged by hitmaker Akimitsu Honma. And then you have Masayuki Suzuki, affectionately known as Japan's king of love songs, teaming up with the highly talented Airi Suzuki.
For what they call the W Suzuki duet, right?
Yes. And the result is so phenomenal, it won the Reiwa 2 Anisong Grand Prize and completely blew up the internet. So our mission today is to really look at how these lyrics dismantle the intellectual walls these characters have built.
Okay, let's jump right into it. Let's look at the tug of war between that towering intellect and raw instinct. Because the very first line of the song drops you right into this contradiction. You hear that explosive brass, and then the vocal hits.
Right, the vocal goes.
Which basically translates to, I want your everything.
When he sings that, yes, he's literally saying, I want your everything. But the cultural nuance of the Japanese delivery here carries a much heavier, almost desperate weight. It translates more closely to, I want your everything, I crave nothing but you.
I want your everything, I crave nothing but you. I mean, wow, that is so intense for two people who supposedly just want to maintain the upper hand.
That's exactly the paradox. This opening hook is undeniably catchy, but underneath the pop sheen, it represents this intense, almost primal possessiveness. Think about the anime's premise, yeah.
Right, they live entirely in their heads.
Exactly. Plotting cold, rational strategies. But this lyric, this daddy, daddy, do, is their primal instinct just screaming from the basement. It's the stark realization that despite all their towering intellect, they don't just want to win a game, they want to consume the other person entirely.
It perfectly highlights the total hypocrisy of their situation.
Yeah.
I always picture this dynamic like Like playing a high-stakes intellectual game of chess against someone you have a massive, overwhelming crush on.
Oh, that's a great visual.
Above the table, you are staring at the board, calculating 5 moves ahead, keeping this flawless, icy poker face. You want to look like a stoic master.
Right, completely unbothered.
But under the table,
Yeah.
your leg is bouncing a mile a minute, your palms are sweating, and honestly, you just want to flip the board over and kiss them because the emotional attention is just too high to bear.
The bouncing leg under the table is perfect. The intellect is desperately trying to maintain the chess game, but the physical instinct is threatening to completely overwhelm the system. And that precarious balance leads beautifully into the physiological betrayal we see in the very next line. The lyrics go.
So breaking that down, the direct English translation and the cultural nuance point to this feeling of, it's like you're toying with my feelings as they start to heat up.
Yes, exactly. It's like you're toying with my feelings as they start to heat up. The key word there is hoteridasu. It describes a rising temperature, a flush, a physical blush.
Ah, hoteridasu. So literally their face getting hot.
Right. This is the body blatantly betraying the mind. Because for an elite genius trying to maintain a poker face, blushing is a catastrophic system failure. It is physical, undeniable proof that they are losing control.
And what happens when a hyper-strategic mind realizes it's losing control?
It immediately becomes paranoid.
Right. Because they can't accept that they're just experiencing a normal human emotion. They have to overthink it.
Exactly. They feel their face getting hot, and their elite brain rationalizes it by jumping to the conclusion that the other person must have orchestrated this. They assume the other person is calmly mocking them or toying with them. They are convinced the enemy is still perfectly in control of the chess game.
But I have to push back on their logic here because this is where the comedy and the tragedy of the show really shine. Are they actually being toyed with, or are these two geniuses just projecting their own hyper-strategic paranoia onto completely innocent interactions?
Oh, so that's always projection.
Like, say Shirogane drops a pencil and Kaguya picks it up, their fingers brush, her heart starts pounding and she blushes. She immediately assumes, oh my god, he dropped that pencil on purpose at the exact right angle to see me flush, he's toying with me.
Yes.
When in reality, he just fumbled a pencil and is internally panicking just as much as she is.
That is the core irony of their entire relationship. Because they view romance purely as a brain war with winners and losers, they interpret their own internal thermal runaway as a calculated attack by the enemy. It's a brilliant lyrical illustration of a character trying to step back and analyze the situation while simultaneously melting down from their own enthusiasm.
It's hilarious, but it's also incredibly genuine to the teenage experience. You always think everyone is analyzing you as harshly as you're analyzing yourself. But eventually, the physical symptoms escalate and the chess game has to fall apart. We cross this critical line from a game into reality with the next lyric.
Right.
And the English translation and cultural nuance is, what started as a game has become serious, taking me into forbidden territory.
What started as a game has become serious, taking me into forbidden territory. We have to talk about that linguistic shift from asobi to maji.
Yeah, let's unpack that.
It's arguably the most terrifying and alluring moment in any romance. Asobi means play, or a game, something with low stakes where you can basically walk away.
Right.
But maji means serious, real, undeniable. And notice the phrase ikenai koto, which translates to forbidden territory.
But what exactly makes this forbidden for them? I mean, it's not like they are doing anything illegal.
Well, for these top-tier students, it could superficially mean breaking strict school rules. But more profoundly, the forbidden territory represents the destruction of their own internal rules, their rationality, their defensive walls, and their massive pride.
Oh, wow. So they are basically breaking their own laws.
Exactly. These are geniuses who set out to build elaborate psychological traps for the other person. The grand irony here is that they're getting hopelessly tangled in the very traps they built. They've entered an emotional territory where their massive intellect can no longer protect them.
It's like they built this incredibly complex labyrinth for the other person to get lost in, but they completely forgot to leave a map for themselves.
That is a perfect way to put it.
And finding themselves lost in that labyrinth brings us to an incredible, raw moment of surrender. The next lyric says, when you look at the translation and the cultural nuance for this line, it is a massive concession. It means, even if I'm being deceived, I don't care. Just make my heart tremble more.
Even if I'm being deceived, I don't care. Just make my heart tremble more. It is the ultimate white flag.
Even if I'm being deceived, I don't care. I mean, that is a total collapse of their original philosophy.
Oh, completely. Remember, in their minds, being deceived means losing the war. It means total humiliating defeat. But right here, they completely discard that pride.
Yeah.
They are outright stating that the physical trembling of the heart, the raw, undeniable emotion, is now vastly more important than the intellectual victory of winning or losing. The emotional heat we saw earlier with the blushing has completely melted their defensive armor.
It makes me think of a master tightrope walker. They are 50 feet in the air, perfectly balanced, calculating wind speed, completely focused on getting from point A to point B without making a single mistake.
Right, maintaining total control.
Exactly. The entire goal of their existence is to not fall. But suddenly, halfway across the rope, they look down. And they realize that the effort of maintaining this perfect balance is exhausting, and they would actually rather experience the exhilarating, terrifying thrill of the fall than safely reach the other side.
Oh, yeah.
Logic completely vanishes. The fear of falling is replaced by the overwhelming desire to just plunge into the feeling.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. The calculation of profit and loss, the idea that if I confess, I lose, is abandoned for the sheer explosive power of the experience. They are willingly throwing themselves off the tightrope because the fall is where the life is.
So now they are falling, the pride is gone, the safety net is gone. And here is where the lyrics make a really fascinating thematic shift. They move away from this high school game of cat and mouse and into a surprisingly mature, almost dark realization about time and the depths of love.
Yes.
The translation and nuance we find here is, I won't hesitate anymore. Because you are a special person, I'll never meet again.
I won't hesitate anymore. Because you are a special person, I'll never meet again. The hesitation is just entirely wiped out.
It really is a firm, explicit rejection. No, no, no.
Up until this point, their entire relationship has been defined by hesitation, overthinking every move so many steps ahead that they became completely paralyzed. But that overthinking ends right here because they intuitively realize the strict time limit of their situation.
Ah, right. High school, youth, this specific moment in time, it doesn't last forever. The clock is ticking.
Exactly. It's the sudden, sobering realization of the sheer uniqueness of the person standing in front of them. The song uses this upbeat, driving funk rhythm to practically push them forward, breaking through the stagnation of their overanalyzed relationship.
Yeah, pushing them to act.
They realize that if they keep playing this safe intellectual game forever, the clock will run out and they're going to lose this irreplaceable person entirely.
It's that sudden flash of clarity where you realize your pride is the exact thing keeping you from the one thing you actually want. And that vulnerability leads to an incredibly raw admission.
The next lyric is,
The English translation and cultural nuance here is, I want more than just beautiful memories. I want to fulfill even dangerous desires.
I want more than just beautiful memories. I want to fulfill even dangerous desires. This is where the song really shows its teeth.
Dangerous desires. That is a massive leap from just blushing in the student council room.
It absolutely is. And this phrase pierces right to the multifaceted, often chaotic nature of love. The song is acknowledging that real love isn't just polite, beautiful, surface-level high school romance.
No, it's messy.
Exactly. It involves messy, disruptive, and yes, dangerous urges that could completely upend and destroy the peaceful, controlled daily lives these elite students have built.
You know, for you listening, I really want to highlight how this specific line totally elevates the song from a standard anime theme into a true masterpiece. It proves that love makes fools of us all.
Oh, completely.
It strips away our polished exteriors, our perfect grades, our composed public faces, and leaves us with raw, adult desires, regardless of how smart or put together we claim to be.
This is also where the casting of the vocalist proves to be an absolute stroke of genius. Masayuki Suzuki is a veteran artist with decades of experience.
Right.
His mature, incredibly rich, and resonant vocals lend a heavy, convincing reality to this word, danger. If this lyric was sung entirely by a teenager, it might sound like a melodramatic exaggeration.
Like teenager angst.
Exactly. But Suzuki's voice brings the depth of an adult emotional abyss into this teenage love story. It proves that the emotions these characters are feeling are overwhelmingly real, powerful, and universally human.
It bridges the gap. It says, yes, these are kids playing a game, but the fire they are playing with is very, very real. And speaking of fire, we have reached the ultimate destination of these messy, dangerous desires. It is an explosive, all-consuming climax. And the translation and deep cultural nuance for this final phrase is, I want to burn until the end of my life, until the break of dawn.
I want to burn until the end of my life, until the break of dawn. It's so final.
I want to burn until the break of dawn. It really is.
This is the absolute peak of their emotional acceleration. And notice the lyrical technique here. They deliberately set a strict time limit until the break of dawn.
I want to dig into that. Why does adding a time limit make it feel so much more intense?
It's the physics of emotion. When you restrict an experience to a finite boundary, you force all of the energy into a much smaller space. Because they know the sun will rise, they know they will eventually have to wake up and return to their predictable, elite realities.
Right.
But for this one night, they are choosing to exist entirely outside of logic. By acknowledging that it can't last forever, the restriction forces all their pent-up passion to burn infinitely hotter in the present moment.
That makes perfect sense. All of the intellectual strategies, all the protective pride they spent so much time building up, it is all finally sublimated into one massive, singular flame of passion. They are no longer thinking, they are just burning.
And we absolutely have to acknowledge how the music itself perfectly mirrors this psychological journey. We talked about the W. Suzuki duet earlier, Masayuki Suzuki and Airi Suzuki.
The synergy between them is undeniable. It's so good.
It really is.
Yeah.
As the song progresses toward this fiery climax, their vocal interplay becomes incredibly intense. The sparks flying between their voices literally sound like the characters' brain war escalating in real time.
Oh, I love that!
You could hear the back and forth, the push and pull of the male and female vocals fighting for dominance, until it finally merges into this undeniable, unified harmony at the chorus. So what does this all mean? It shows that this isn't just an anime song, it's a masterpiece that shows how love strips away our armor and turns us back into vulnerable human beings.
It truly is a masterclass in songwriting, which leaves us with a provocative thought to consider. If the game of love is driven by the tension of not confessing, what happens to that fiery passion the morning after the dawn? Does the fire go out when the war is won, or does a new kind of intensity begin?
Well, thank you so much to everyone for tuning in and listening to the audio today. We regularly pick up various Japanese songs and update detailed explanations on our website and blog.
We do.
If you want to savor the lyrics even more deeply, please check the link in the description to explore our website. If you enjoyed this show, we would love it if you could subscribe and follow the channel.
It really helps us out.
It does. Also, please leave a comment with your thoughts on today's episode or any requests for songs you'd like us to cover next. We'll see you next time. This was Japan Lyric Room.